So I don't need to tell you that gasoline is expensive, and I'm sure the gas stations are only responding to market fluctuations, even though those markets happen to be uniquely close to provincial, national, and state parks, or in rural areas where gas stations are few and far between. How convenient. And more to the point is that we happen to use a lot of it when we are towing our camper trailers. Well, there is a way to break the cycle a little bit. So right now, if you go to Costco here in Canada, you can get two of these Scepter 20-liter fuel cans for $44.99, which is honestly a really good price considering that at Canadian Tire, they're $32.99 each. So it's kind of like a buy one, get one half off. And even if the fuel price is only 10 cents per liter, that actually works out to $2 per can. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but it will add up over time. However, 10 cents a liter is pretty conservative. You can see that just whether you're on the inside or outside of town. What is more realistic when we're talking about Alberta to British Columbia is 25 cents a liter, if not even more. I've definitely seen it more. But at 25 cents per liter, that's $10 per two cans. So all you need to do is do that 4 times and you have yourself some free fuel cells. So that's exactly what I did. In fact, I bought 6 of them, or 3 pairs. There's not only a monetary benefit, but there's also a practical benefit as well, because while I am saving money and now have some free fuel cans, I've also been able to effectively double my range. So this truck, Grey Wolf 1 here, has a 136-liter tank. These 6 cans add up to 120 liters, so almost an entire tank. I don't know the math on it. It's probably around 90%, let's say. Nevertheless, I'm extending the distance for me to be able to travel not only between stops, but if I want to skip an expensive station and fuel up at a more affordable one, I can do that. And for me here in West Central Alberta, I can drive all the way to effectively the lower mainland of BC. More specifically, if I'm headed down to Bellingham, USA to go do some mountain biking, I can just cross the border into Washington State and fuel up for a really good price. If for whatever reason you're traveling through that area and you don't want to cross the border, maybe your destination is Squamish or Whistler, then a pro tip is go to the Costco gas station in Abbotsford, super close to the Trans-Canada Highway, and it tends to be the best fuel price in the lower mainland, in my opinion. Now, you've probably noticed that one of these is not like the others, and that is essentially the crux of this video. Because while anybody can go and buy fuel cans and then stand there next to the vehicle and add the fuel in, this makes the process a whole lot easier, less physical, and quite frankly cleaner, because you're not actually handling dipsticks or getting fumes and droplets of fuel all over your hands. There is a way that I think Scepter can improve this, but I'll get into that later. So let's talk about this. So this is a modified version of the Scepter Flow and Go, which I picked up at my local Canadian Tire for $39.99. Now, it's modified because I have gone to our local Princess Auto, aka the Canadian Harbor Freight, and I've purchased a longer hose, which will become more apparent in a few minutes when I demonstrate the system. But it consists of the handle assembly with a priming handle, and up here at the jug end, what would normally be the funnel is replaced by this hose and breather assembly. And so what you can do is you will insert this into the fuel tank. What's super cool is you don't need to use the fuel filler adapter that is common on capless fuel tanks like Grey Wolf 1 has here, which is a great system. So it does work with that perfectly fine. You squeeze the handle, which is actually a priming pump inside of here, and it will pull the gas through. Now, if I'm being entirely honest, I'll raise my hand and actually say I bought this, returned it, and then bought it again, because what my original plan was is to simply have all of them in the bed as I normally do, and then fill it up. But you need gravity on your side. So I'll go ahead and show you exactly what I do when I am using this. So for weight distribution reasons, I normally have the fuel cans, when they're in my truck, all lined up at this end here. And what I can simply do is get the fuel can in question. In fact, I'm even gonna cheat here for a second, but normally I would go down. We can insert this in. Now there is a safety lock, and I'm gonna talk about that in a minute, but we're gonna prime the system. We can see it's pulling air out. And now, because hashtag gravity, we are flowing from this can into it. Now you've probably already noticed the first problem, and that is that while the catch on here is a safety catch to keep the fuel from flowing out into the bed of your pickup truck, there is no catch holding this up. So an alternative might be maybe something where you can manually push this and then, you know, let it self-latch. So I'm going to temporarily stop it here and go back to illustrating my point. Now, why I added this hose is hopefully obvious, but that also enables me to just simply pull up one or all of the fuel cans and then just transfer the can hose assembly down the line. And that means I'm not standing outside holding a big jug. I am, you know, not breaking my back. It's as much time, effort, and labor as it is squeezing that handle and just changing from one can to the next. So I mentioned the handle issue or improvement I'd like to see, but something else is that you might actually notice there's still fuel in the bottom of these cans. Now, the hose that actually goes into the can is just a bit too short to actually reach the bottom. So I don't know if that was maybe just somebody at the factory that was being a bit conservative in the hose length, but that is something that I'm going to have to go back and purchase just a longer bit. I've also clamped the hoses onto the handle and to the spout, and I recommend doing that on the inside of the fuel canister as well. Should that hose slip off, it's a much looser fit than the wire braided hosing that I use. So yeah, that would be a nightmare to fish it out. And last but not least is, while one jug with the Flow and Go works perfectly fine, unless you're really going out for a day trip on a dirt bike, you're going to probably want to have multiple jugs anyways. And at that point, there's nothing wrong with the operation of now coming in and either switching the fill spouts, or what I really could and should do is just ditch the spouts altogether and then just use the caps. But I don't know if that's actually meant, because there is a rubber seal here, so maybe not. Anyways, what would be really cool is, as a optional upgrade, if Scepter wanted to add some like quick connect style fittings. So maybe there's like a little cap, you just simply unscrew the cap from the jug end and you use the quick connects on the Flow and Go, and then that way you can just go bam, 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 bam down the line. And with a quick connect fitting, depending on the size of it and the orifice, you can design it so that there's no flow restriction. But again, what that'll do is that'll minimize the amount of actual like stuff with fuel coated plastics, etc., you know, potentially dripping on your vehicle because you have to set that down somewhere. And everyone's vehicle is going to be different. In fact, pro tip, if you have a vehicle with a roof rack and not a pickup truck, there are other fuel canisters that have this same universal style fitting that are flat. I used to have one on the top of my truck because it was like really aerodynamic. Other people have them on the sides of their vehicle or the back. But in any case, what you can still do is get the Flow and Go attachment and, you know, thread it into it. But you might not want to leave that up there all the time. In fact, even with myself in the back of the pickup truck, I leave one with it on all the time, and it kind of is a little bit annoying to deal with. What I would really like to be able to do is disconnect it from the fuel canisters and put it in like maybe like a zippered bag, so that again, odor and fuel dripping, etc. From what I can tell, inside that nozzle, it's really good in terms of like not letting a drop of fuel out, but you know, we're driving up and down bumpy roads, etc., and everything has its limits, right? So that just about does it for the fuel canisters. As I alluded to earlier, I do actually have another idea that utilizes this system in general, but I am going to need some help with that from Scepter. So hopefully we'll be back for another video in the future. And hello to all the new subscribers. And unfortunately over the last couple of days, goodbye to a couple as well. If I'm being entirely honest, the channel right now, as mentioned, we're focusing on a lot of tech videos. I think it's kind of the time of year when people are out at their trailers and they're, setting them up for the season. And, this is maybe not the kind of stuff you want to be, running around after work or losing nice weekends for. In fact, this weekend, despite the wind that's rolling through right this second, is actually super nice. So yes, there's a lot of tech videos right now. There's definitely trip videos coming up in the future. In fact, I was supposed to go away this weekend, but I have a lot of filming and other obligations to do, and it was the right decision to postpone that. Nevertheless, if you are just here for trip videos, please be patient with me, and I really do sincerely, honestly hope that maybe this inspires some, cool systems and projects on your end anyways. And yeah, there's more truck stuff coming. In fact, there's really cool truck stuff coming that I would have liked to have got out earlier in the winter. And anyways, like I said, logistical problems on my end. Nevertheless, thank you very much for honestly sticking with me. This is not a ploy just to get you to comment to help the YouTube algorithm, but I am honestly really curious. If you're thinking of unsubscribing, what brought you here in the first place? Because I will definitely try to make an emphasis on adding that type of content in the future. I do also have some really cool plans that are like long-term plans that's not going to happen, this year. I do treat the channel like a business, and so I have to be really careful about, spending a lot of money on something if I can only really turn it into one video. So yeah, nothing's free, right? And right now this channel is not monetized. We're not making any money off of this. There seems to be some misconceptions floating around that these YouTubers are all rich. Everything, 100%, the camera equipment, all this stuff, it's all out of pocket, because I really honestly like making the videos. But yeah, I'm thinking that maybe what I'll do in the future, as like a celebration for hitting like the 500 mark or something, is do like a live video. I've never done one before, so that might be kind of a good kick in the butt for me to sit down and figure out, how to do that logistically, and maybe have a bit more of an opportunity to like do a one-on-one. I know a lot of creators do that. So anyways, yeah, thank you for sticking around. Please let me know what you're interested in. And like I said, if it fits in sort of my vision, I'll certainly kind of steer in those directions. And in the meanwhile, thank you very much for subscribing. It does honestly mean the world to me. Oh, and if you found this useful or helpful in any way, please click that thumb up button, because it tells the YouTube algorithm to show this video to other people. In the meanwhile, we see you next week. You take care, and bye for now.